I pretended to be my brother and his best friend fell for me. My brother's best friend just asked him to meet up and talk about all the deep stuff we've been texting about. My brother has no idea what he's talking about because those texts weren't with him. They were with me. The message is still glowing on my phone screen when my stomach drops. Adrian, hey man, can we finally talk in person about everything? I feel like these past few weeks changed something between us and I want to say thank you face to face. Sent to Daniel. Read by me. Adrian thinks he's been opening up to his best friend of 8 years. He thinks Daniel is the one who stayed up until 3 in the morning while he typed out his fears. He thinks Daniel is the one who told him it's okay to want music more than the family business, that it's okay to not have his whole life mapped out at 21, but that wasn't Daniel. That was me, Maya, Daniel's little sister, the girl Adrian barely talks to in real life. I've been pretending to be my brother in their group chat just for a couple weeks, accidentally became Adrian's late night confidant, and somewhere along the way, I fell for him. If Adrian finds out the truth, I lose him. If Daniel finds out what I've been doing with his name and his friendships, I lose him too. And the worst part? This all started as a favor. Let me explain. 6 weeks earlier, my bedroom door flew open without a knock. Maya, Daniel groaned, stumbling in like a midterm had punched him in the face. I need help, like actual help. Like I might cry? I glanced up from my laptop. My communications paper was a blank Google Doc with the title Final Essay and absolutely nothing under it. You look like a before picture in a finals week meme, I said. Because I am, he said, collapsing face first onto my bed. 2 midterms, capstone meeting, career fair, 3 job applications, group project with people who don't know what email is. I'm 1 notification away from just combusting. Daniel is in his last year of mechanical engineering. He's brilliant in the kind of way that makes professors talk about him in the hallway, loud in the kind of way that makes him friends in any room, and somehow always 5 minutes late to everything. He's also genuinely awful at texting. He leaves people on read for days, starts typing and then never sends, forgets to answer crucial "are you coming?" messages, and somehow his friends still adore him because in person he's golden. Tonight, though, he looked more like a crumpled receipt than a golden boy. He rolled onto his back and stared at my ceiling. You know my group chat with Adrian and them? The Chaos Committee? I asked. I'd heard that name yelled through our apartment enough times to know it by heart. That one, he said. They're planning Cole's birthday, talking about a winter break trip, sending memes every 10 seconds. And my brain is like, if one more person asks me one more thing, I'm going to throw my phone into the river. I closed my laptop. Okay, and what does this have to do with me? He pushed himself up on his elbows and gave me the look. That meant he was about to ask for something big. I need you to cover for me in the chat, just for a couple weeks. I stared at him. Cover? How? Just text for me. He said like it was obvious. React to memes. Say I'm alive. Lock in plans. Tell them I'm swamped. You know how I talk, you literally roast me for it. You want me to pretend to be you with your best friends? I said slowly. In a group chat, he repeated, holding up his hands. Not in person. I'm not asking you to shave your head and show up to my lab. Just type. Please, I'm drowning. If I go silent, they'll spiral and think something's wrong, and then I'll have to emotionally manage them on top of everything else. He looked genuinely panicked, which, to be fair, I had never seen on his face before. Here's what you need to know about being Daniel's little sister. He's the main character. I'm the running commentary. He walks into a room and people just rearrange around him. Professors remember him. Baristas flirt with him. Campus security waves when he bikes past. I'm the one people meet later and say, oh, you're Daniel's sister. I don't hate it. I'm quieter. I like watching people more than being watched, but it does something to you, living in the glow of someone else's spotlight for years. So when the main character walks into your room and says, I need you, it hits different. That sounds ethically questionable, I said. Can we get a ruling from an ethics committee? It's fine, he said. I'll tell them eventually you helped. Maybe, if I remember. Please, May, just for a couple weeks. I'll buy you dinner. Nice dinner. Not fast food. With appetizers. He looked wrecked and annoyingly sincere. 2 weeks, I said. And I get to pick the restaurant. His shoulders dropped in relief. Deal. He unlocked his phone, opened messages, and shoved it into my hands. The Chaos Committee chat was exactly what I expected. Chaos. Memes. Voice notes, plans for pickup basketball, complaints about professors, Cole's birthday plans pinned at the top. I scrolled through and saw their names. Lucas, Cole, and Adrian. Adrian Morales, Daniel's best friend since freshman year. The one who showed up at our family dinners sometimes. The one my mom always asked about. The one who crashed on our couch after game nights and helped wash dishes without being asked. To me, he was just this hot, loud, confident guy who filled our kitchen with noise and stories whenever he came over. He'd say hi to me, ask about classes, then go right back to Daniel. I'd never texted him in my life. How hard can it be? I muttered. Spoiler, pretty hard. The first few days were easy. I kept it simple. I reacted to Lucas's memes. I typed bet and LOL and I'm in when they made plans. I dropped I'm buried in school but alive to remind them Daniel hadn't died. I copied my brother's style. Short, slightly chaotic, 0 punctuation, like his thumbs were always in a hurry. It felt weird but also weirdly natural. I'd been imitating Daniel's way of talking for years as a joke. Doing it on purpose wasn't that different. Then 4 days in, something changed. A new notification popped up while I was halfway through a reading assignment. Adrian Morales. New message, but not in the Chaos Committee. In a private DM. To Daniel. My heart did a tiny, stupid jump. I tapped it open. Adrian, you up? It was 10:47 p.m. I stared at the screen. This wasn't group chat fluff. This was direct. I could have done the smart thing. I could have walked down the hall, thrown the phone at Daniel and said, hey, your best friend wants you. Instead, I typed, yeah, what's up? 3 dots appeared. Disappeared, reappeared. Can I ask you something kind of serious? There was a second where I almost told the truth right then. I almost typed, actually, it's Maya. Daniel's drowning in finals and I'm covering the Chaos Committee, like a customer service line. Instead, I took a breath and wrote, always, what's going on? That was the moment the line between favor and lie officially blurred. Adrian didn't start with a joke. He started with his dad. My father's on me again about the business. He literally sent me a calendar invite called, discuss your future like an adult. His family owns a chain of car dealerships across the state. I knew that in the basic, surface level way, facts about your brother's friend. What I didn't know, or Daniel didn't know, was this part. He's already talking about me stepping into leadership after graduation. Like it's decided. Like I'm a piece that goes in the family legacy puzzle. And every time I even hint that I might want something different, He looks at me like I said I want to quit school and join a circus. He kept typing fast. Like once he'd cracked open the door, everything came tumbling out. How he loved making music, how he'd been producing beats in his room since high school, how he'd built a tiny following online. Nothing huge, but enough to make him feel like maybe this wasn't just a hobby. How every conversation with his dad lately ended in a tight jaw and a headache. I feel like there's a version of my life that's already been written for me, and if I don't follow the script, I'm the bad guy, the ungrateful son. I don't know, sorry, this is dumb. I stared at my phone. This wasn't the Adrian I knew from our living room. Confident, loud, always joking. This was raw, vulnerable, and he was trusting Daniel with it. Except he wasn't. He was trusting me by accident. I could practically feel my heart beating in my throat. I typed back, "It's not dumb. Wanting something different doesn't make you ungrateful. It just makes you honest. You get one life. You don't owe anyone a performance of a version of you that makes them more comfortable." There was a long pause. "Since when are you this deep?" Panic flickered. I scrambled. "I've been stressed," I wrote as Daniel. "Makes you think about stuff." "Yeah," he wrote. "Guess that makes sense." I added, "I get why your dad wants you in the business, but it's not his name on your life, dude. It's yours." I hit send and winced. That sounded nothing like Daniel. Except, "Okay, I'm not gonna lie, that hit." He replied, "You should do one of those inspirational TED Talk things. It's your name on your life, dude." I exhaled, tension easing slightly. We kept talking about his dad, about the pressure, about how he felt guilty even thinking about not joining the business because of everything his family had sacrificed. He ended the night with, "Thanks, man. Seriously, I feel like I can finally breathe a little." I stared at those words. "You can always talk to me," I typed. And I meant it, even though he had no idea who he was actually talking to. The late night messages became a thing. At first it was every few days. Then it was almost every night. My phone would buzz and Adrian's name would light up my screen. Sometimes he wanted to vent about his dad. Sometimes it was about classes. Sometimes it was random. Songs he'd found. Weird things his roommates did. A stray cat that started hanging around his building like it paid rent. I learned things about him. I'd never noticed in the swirl of people in our living room that he hated coffee but loved the ritual of holding a warm cup. That he used to skateboard and had a faded scar on his left hand from a bad fall. That his favorite movie was some artsy French film with subtitles that he swore everyone should watch at least once. That he loved Christmas lights but hated Christmas music. I learned the way his thoughts spiraled when he got anxious. The way he'd undercut serious things with jokes to make them feel less heavy. I learned him. And slowly, without meaning to, I started falling. At first I dismissed it. I told myself I was just invested. Like when you binge a show and become unreasonably attached to a character. But it got harder to lie to myself when I realized I was rearranging my evenings to be free when he usually texted. Or when I caught myself smiling down at my phone in the middle of the library. And every time that happened, the same cold thought followed. This isn't real. Not for him. He thinks he's talking to Daniel. I tried to pull back. I told myself I'd reply slower. Keep it surface level. But then he'd send something like, "You ever feel like you're living two lives? The one everyone sees and the one in your head?" And there I'd be, thumbs flying, cracking myself open to answer a question he didn't even know he was asking me. Then one night, about 2 weeks into our messages, he sent something that made my whole body lock up. "You know your sister Maya?" My blood went cold. "Yeah," I typed as Daniel. "What about her?" There was a pause. "She seems cool." "I don't know. I've always thought she was interesting, but we never really talk. I feel like she'd be fun to get to know." I stared at the screen, my face burning. He thought I was interesting. He wanted to get to know me, the real me. Except he didn't know the real me had been talking to him for hours every night. "You should talk to her sometime," I wrote, hands shaking. "She's not terrible." "Maybe I will," he replied. "Anyway, thanks again for listening. I don't say this enough, but I'm really glad we're close like this. Means a lot." I dropped my phone onto my bed and stared at the ceiling. What was I doing? Real life made everything harder, because Adrian wasn't just a name on a screen. He was at our apartment almost every weekend. He was at the coffee shop down the street when Daniel dragged everyone out to study. He was at pickup games, at our kitchen table, on our couch. He existed in my physical space. And now I knew the inside of his head too. It was torture. One Friday night, about 3 weeks into my double life, Daniel had the guys over for board games and pizza. I tried to stay in my room, but our apartment is small, and the smell of pepperoni plus the sound of chaos pulled me out. I wandered into the kitchen to grab a drink. Adrian walked in a second later to toss a paper plate. "Hey, Maya," he said, leaning against the counter like it was a movie and not my actual cramped kitchen. "You surviving midterms?" I almost dropped my cup. His eyes were on me, not sliding past me. Focused. "I'm hanging in there," I said, pleased that my voice sounded mostly normal. "You?" He gave a small, tired laugh. "I'm on my 4th energy drink this week, and my dad keeps sending me dealership spreadsheets like they're memes, so, great." He said it lightly. But last night, on text, he'd told me he'd gotten off a call with his dad and wanted to delete his whole future and start over. I knew exactly how not great he was. "You seem really busy," I said carefully. "That's a lot." He looked at me like he wasn't expecting me to actually see through the joke. "Yeah," he said, his voice dropping a little. "It is." For a second, something crackled in the air between us, like he was considering saying more, like we were standing on the edge of a different version of this conversation. "Maya!" Daniel shouted from the living room. "You playing or what?" The moment snapped. Adrian pushed off the counter. "Duty calls," he said, flashing me a quick smile. "Board game chaos waits for no man." He walked away. I stood there gripping my cup like it might hold me together. It only got worse from there. Little cracks started forming in the lie. One afternoon at the coffee shop, he said, "It's like that thing about fear not going away. You just get better at walking with it." I froze. I'd typed that to him 3 nights earlier. Now he was using it out loud, in front of everyone, and when he said it, his eyes flicked to me just for a second, like his brain was trying to match the feeling he had in our messages, with a face in the room. My heart pounded so loudly I barely heard the rest of his story. Cole, the most observant one in the group, started looking at me differently too. Not suspicious exactly, just sharper, like he was noticing patterns. One day after everyone left, I accidentally overheard him talking to Daniel in the hallway outside my room. "Dude," Cole said, not to be weird, "but you've been different in the chat lately." "Different how?" Daniel asked. "I don't know, just deeper?" Cole laughed. "Like one week you're sending cursed memes and then suddenly you're dropping therapy quotes at midnight." Daniel snorted. "I've been stressed. text. Midterms will make you philosophical. You hate texting emotional stuff, Cole said. That's why it threw me. It sounded more like he trailed off. My heart stopped. Like what? Daniel asked. Never mind, Cole said. I'm probably overthinking it. I backed away from my door, pulse racing. The walls were closing in. Then came the message that detonated everything. I was in bed, lights off, scrolling mindlessly, waiting for my brain to quiet down enough to sleep. My phone buzzed. Adrian, can I tell you something? Always, I wrote, the word automatic now. These past few weeks have been different in a good way. I feel like something shifted between us. I don't really know how to say this over text, but I want you to know how much it's meant to me. Can we meet up? Just the two of us. This weekend, I want to talk about it in person and say thank you properly. Time slowed. He wanted to talk in person with Daniel, except Daniel had no idea what any of this was about. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I could lie. Say I was busy. Say we'll talk later. But Adrian wasn't the type to let something big go. If I stalled, he'd just bring it up again. Or worse, go directly to Daniel and ask him in person. Either way, the truth was coming for me. My chest felt tight. Yeah, I typed finally. Let's do it. Cool, he replied. Saturday? The bench by the library? Quieter there. I stared at the tiny bubbles of our chat. That bench was suddenly a guillotine. I put my phone down and stared at the ceiling, the weight of what I'd done pressing down on me from all sides. I couldn't keep this to myself anymore. I had to tell Daniel before Adrian. Walked up to him expecting some big emotional conversation and got absolutely nothing. The next night, I stood outside Daniel's door for a solid 5 minutes, debating whether to knock. I did anyway. He was at his desk surrounded by notes and empty coffee cups. He glanced up. What's up? I need to tell you something, I said. Something in my voice must have freaked him out, because his expression shifted. Okay, he said slowly. You're scaring me. I sat on the edge of his bed, my hands shaking. You know how I've been helping with the Chaos Committee chat? Yeah, he said. And you've been killing it, by the way. Adrian and Lucas keep saying I got weirdly reliable. I swallowed. That hurt more than I expected. Daniel, I said. I didn't just answer a few memes. I might have gone way past that. He straightened up. What does that mean? So I told him. I told him about Adrian's late night DMs, about his dad, the business, the music, the pressure, the things he was afraid of, the way he felt like he was living someone else's plan. I told him how I'd answered, how I'd listened, how the messages became a habit, an anchor, something I looked forward to every night. I told him that Adrian thought he'd been talking to his best friend and had no idea it was me. And then, because there was no way to make this sound better, I added, and I think I might have feelings for him. The room went very, very quiet. Daniel blinked. Once, twice. Then he stood up and walked to the window, his back to me. So let me get this straight, he said, voice tight. I asked you to send a couple texts for me, so my friends wouldn't think I'd ghosted them and you took over my identity with my best friend. It wasn't like that at first, I said weakly. He messaged and he was hurting and you just what? He snapped, whirling around. Decided to pretend to be me? Every night? For weeks? I thought I'd just be there once, I said, tears burning my eyes. But then it kept happening and I didn't know how to stop without making it worse. And now Adrian thinks we've had all these deep bonding moments I don't even remember, Daniel said, cutting me off. He trusts me with things I've never heard. And you let him. You let him think it was me. I know, I whispered. I know it's messed up. I hate it. I hate that I did this. He needed someone. And you were drowning. And I thought I could handle it and I couldn't. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. Do you understand what this looks like? To him, to me? You've been catfishing my best friend using my name. The word made my stomach twist. I'm going to tell him, I said. I have to. He asked to meet up on Saturday to talk about everything. He thinks he's meeting you at the bench by the library. I'm going to go instead and tell him the truth. Daniel stopped pacing. He asked to meet, he repeated. Yes, I said. He said these past few weeks changed something and he wants to say thank you in person. I can't let him go there expecting you and get nothing. I'll tell him everything. You can hate me after. I deserve it. He stared at me, jaw clenched. You're right, he said finally. You do have to tell him, because if you don't, I will. I'm not going to keep lying to him. I nodded, tears spilling over now. And Maya? He added quietly. This really hurts. That sentence broke something in me. I know, I choked out. I know, and I'm sorry. I wish I could undo all of it. He didn't say anything else. He just turned back to the window, leaving me to let myself out. I went back to my room with my heart in pieces and a countdown clock ticking in. I walked to campus in a kind of numb, slow motion, my breath clouding in the cold air. The oak tree by the library loomed ahead, its branches mostly bare, leaves crunching under my sneakers. Adrian was already there, sitting on the bench, hands shoved in his jacket pockets, leg bouncing. He looked up when he heard me. Maya? He said, surprise flickering across his face. Hey, have you seen Daniel? We were supposed to. He's not coming, I said. Confusion creased his forehead. What, did something happen? He texted me. He didn't, I said. I did. He blinked. What? My heart was pounding so hard I felt it in my throat. Adrian, I need to tell you something, I said, forcing the words out. And you're going to hate it. You might hate me, but I need you to hear all of it. He stood up slowly. Maya, you're freaking me out. Where's Daniel? At home, I said, because he doesn't know what everything we've been talking about means. I do. He stared at me like the pieces were there, but he didn't want to assemble them. What are you talking about? He asked. The messages, I said. The late night texts, the stuff about your dad and the business and your music and feeling like you're living someone else's life. That wasn't Daniel. Silence. Maya, he said slowly. What are you saying? I wanted to throw up. I'm saying, I took a breath that felt like swallowing glass. I'm the one who answered you. Daniel asked me to help with the Chaos Committee when he was overwhelmed. You DM'd him and I responded instead. It was supposed to be a one-time thing, but then it kept happening. And I kept responding and I didn't stop it. I should have. I didn't. I lied. A lot. His face went blank in the way that's worse than shouting. No, he said. No, that doesn't. I've been talking to Daniel. You've been talking to me, I said. Through Daniel's phone. He laughed once, but it didn't sound like him. No, because Daniel made that joke about my dad and the spreadsheets and that thing about my name on my life. That was me, I said quietly. Those were my words. He took a step back. I told you things I've never told anyone. he said, his voice rising. I told you, him, that I feel like a fraud, that I'm scared to disappoint my family, that I still think about that skateboarding accident when I'm up at night for no reason. I thought I was finally connecting with my best friend. Like, for real. And you're telling me that was a lie? The feelings were real, I said quickly. Everything I said was real. The only fake part was the name. I listened because I wanted to. I cared. You cared, he cut in. You cared so much you lied to my face for weeks. You let me believe it was Daniel. You let me thank him for stuff he didn't even know he'd said. I flinched. I didn't know how to stop, I said weakly. Every time I thought about telling you, I pictured you looking at me like you are right now. I knew I was wrong. I knew I'd crossed a line, but I didn't know how to go back without hurting you. And I told myself, I don't know. I told myself I was helping. You don't get to call this helping, he said. You took my trust and played dress up with it. I swallowed hard. And it got worse, I forced myself to say, because somewhere in all of it, I started feeling things. For you, for real you, not just the version in the chat. So every time I thought about coming clean, it felt like I'd be losing you and Daniel at the same time. He stared at me like I'd spoken in another language. You, what? He said. I like you, I said, voice barely above a whisper. Not the idea of you. You. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. And I hated myself for it because you didn't even know who you were talking to. He shook his head like he could physically dislodge my words. This is insane, he said. Do you know how insane this is? Yes, I said. I think about it every time I close my eyes. We stood there in brittle silence, the campus sounds muffled around us. He finally said, I need you to answer one question. Okay. When I said I was glad we were close like this, he said, his voice breaking a little. When I said I didn't know what I'd do without these talks, who did you think I was talking about? My throat closed. You, I said. Even though I knew you thought you were talking to Daniel, I let myself pretend just for a minute that you meant me. He winced like I'd hit him. I have to go, he said suddenly. I can't do this right now. I can't even look at you right now. Adrian, please. No, he stepped back. Do not text me. Do not call me. I don't even know what I need, but I know I need space. He turned and walked away, hands jammed in his pockets, shoulders tense. I stood under that oak tree until my fingers went numb, watching him get smaller and smaller until he disappeared around the corner. I'd finally told the truth. It hurt exactly as much as I'd imagined. The days after the bench blurred. Adrian left the Chaos Committee chat. One minute his name was there, the next it was gray. Lucas dropped a "what happened?" message that hung unanswered. No one said my name, but I felt the absence like a bruise. Daniel barely spoke to me at first. When he did, it was functional. Pass the salt. I'm leaving in 10. Mom called. Call her back. The warmth between us, the automatic joking, was gone, replaced by something stiff and brittle. I threw myself into school. I went to class. I took notes I didn't absorb. I stayed in the library until it closed, staring at pages without really seeing them. Brooke, my best friend and unofficial, emotional support human, noticed before anyone else. We were in the campus dining hall when she finally cornered me. You look like you haven't slept since Halloween, she said. And you just dipped a French fry into your water cup. I blinked down at my tray. Oh, nice. Okay, she said, setting her fork down. Spill now. I'd been holding it in so tightly that when I started talking, I couldn't stop. I told her everything. The group chat, the late night messages, the bench, the look on Adrian's face, the way Daniel's voice had broken when he said it hurt. When I finished, Brooke just sat there for a moment, staring at me. Well, she said finally, that's a lot. I know, I said miserably. You can say it. I'm the worst. You did something really messed up, she said, because she's honest like that. But I also get how you ended up here. You're not some villain plotting in a tower. You're a girl who wanted to help and then didn't. Know how to untangle herself from her own lie. That doesn't make it okay, I said. No, she agreed. But it does make it human. I picked at my napkin. It feels like I destroyed everything, I said quietly. My relationship with Daniel. Whatever almost thing there was with Adrian. Their friendship. All of it. Destroyed or changed? Brooke asked. Those aren't always the same thing. I didn't know what she meant at the time. I just knew it hurt. Thanksgiving break came. Daniel and I went home, but it was different. Our mom kept asking, is everything okay between you two? Our dad made awkward jokes to fill the silence. Daniel answered their questions more than he answered mine. One night, I heard him on the phone in the hallway. Yeah, man, he was saying. I know you're mad. You should be mad. I would be too. I didn't ask her to do that. I didn't know. If you never want to talk to me again, I get it. My chest tightened. He paused, listening. Okay, he said quietly. Yeah, I'll give you space. He hung up and leaned his forehead against the wall for a second before walking back to his room. I didn't ask who it was. I didn't have to. I knew. We'd been back from break for about a week when everything finally cracked open again. I was in my room one night, half-heartedly scrolling through my notes, when there was a knock on my door. It's open, I called. Daniel stepped in, hovering awkwardly like he wasn't sure he was allowed to be there. Hey, I said, surprised. What's up? He closed the door and sat on the edge of my bed, just like he had 6 weeks earlier when this whole mess started. I've been thinking, he said. That sounds dangerous, I tried to joke, but my voice came out shaky. He ignored that. What you did was messed up, he said bluntly. I'm not going to pretend it wasn't. I'm still mad. I'm still hurt. Adrian is still figuring out how he feels. And I hate that you put him through that using my name. I swallowed. I know, but, he said, I've also been thinking about the fact that I'm the one who asked you to pretend to be me. I'm the one who said, hey, take over my social life because I can't deal with it. Didn't think about what that would mean for you. I frowned. It's not your fault I made terrible choices after that. It's not just my fault, he said. But it's not just yours either. I've been treating you like my personal social assistant for years. Tell mom I'll be late. Text this person back for me. Cover for me. I didn't notice that you disappear in that you're always Daniel's sister, and somehow I still managed to dump more of my identity on you. My throat tightened. I didn't do this because of that, I said. I did it because I thought I could help, and then I got selfish and didn't want to give it up. I think part of you did it because someone finally looked at you and said, you're the one I can talk to, he said. And you didn't get that a lot growing up. Not from my friends anyway. They all came to me. I blinked hard. You're still not off the hook, he added quickly. Like, This isn't your ticket to it's fine, no big deal. It is a big deal. But you're my sister, and I don't want this to be the thing that breaks us forever. Me neither, I whispered. He sighed and scrubbed a hand over his face. I talked to Adrian, he said, on the phone. He's hurt. At both of us, honestly. At you for lying, at me for not noticing his stuff sooner, for outsourcing our friendship to you without realizing it. How mad is he? I asked, bracing myself. Mad, Daniel said. But not in the never speak to me again way. More in the I need time to figure out what's real way. I nodded, tears stinging. I told him the only real thing I'd said in those texts was that I was stressed. Daniel said with a wry smile. Everything else was you. And that I was glad someone was there for him, even if it wasn't the way it should have been. What did he say? I asked, my voice small. He said he didn't know yet, Daniel said, which for Adrian is kind of huge. He usually makes jokes instead of admitting confusion. Silence stretched between us. I'm sorry, Daniel, I said again, for dragging your name into this, for messing with your friendship, for all of it. He looked at me for a long moment. I know you are, he said, and I forgive you. Not in a everything's fine now way. More in a I'm choosing not to hold this over your head forever way. The relief that washed through me was so intense I almost cried right then. Instead, I launched myself forward and hugged him. He hugged me back, his chin digging into the top of my head like it had when we were kids. We're going to be okay, he said into my hair. It might be different, but we'll be okay. For the first time in weeks, I believed him. I didn't expect to hear from Adrian again. I told myself I'd ruined it beyond repair. That best case scenario, he'd be civil at group events someday. Worst case, he'd transfer schools to avoid seeing me. So when his name popped up on my phone 2 weeks before winter break, my heart stopped. Adrian. Hey, can we talk? My hands shook. Me. Yeah, when? Coffee? Library cafe? Tomorrow? I stared at the screen. Okay, I typed. What time? We settled on 3 o'clock. I barely slept. The next day, I got to the campus cafe 10 minutes early and almost turned around 3 times. Adrian was already there. He'd claimed a small table in the back, away from the windows. 2 cups sat in front of him. He stood when he saw me. Hey, he said. Hey, I echoed, my voice coming out softer than I intended. I got you that chai thing you like, he said, nodding toward one of the cups. Brooke mentioned it once and I remembered. My chest twisted. Thank you, I said, sitting down. We both stared at our drinks for a second like they held the answers. I've been thinking a lot, he said finally. About everything. Me too, I said. I was really angry, he said, looking up. Still am sometimes. I keep replaying all those conversations and wanting to throw my phone against a wall. I get it, I said quietly. You have every right to be. But I've also been thinking about this, he continued. If I found out you'd made up a whole personality and fed me lines from Pinterest, I'd probably never speak to you again. A watery laugh escaped me. I didn't. I know, he said. That's the problem. The stuff that helped. The stuff that made me feel less trapped. That was you. Your actual thoughts. Your actual empathy. You just put the wrong name tag on. I winced. That's a generous way to describe lying. He huffed out a breath. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying thanks for the deception 10 out of 10 would recommend. You broke my trust. You hurt me. You made me question my own judgment. That's not something that just disappears because we had good conversations. I wouldn't ask you to pretend it does, I said. But I can't ignore the fact that I've never felt as understood as I did in those messages, he said. And now I know that person was you, not some pretend version of my best friend. You. My heart thudded painfully. I don't expect you to forgive me, I said, or want anything to do with me. If this is just like closure for you, that's okay. It's not just closure, he said. If it was, I would have sent a long text and blocked you. I came here because I don't know what to do with the fact that I was falling for someone I thought was Daniel, and it turns out it was you the whole time. I stared at him. You were, what? I said. He looked away, cheeks flushing slightly. You heard me, he muttered. I thought I was catching feelings for my best friend and it was freaking me out. Made me reevaluate everything. And then I find out it was you, which somehow makes more sense and less sense at the same time. My brain short-circuited for a second. I thought you only saw me as Daniel's sister, I said. I don't know what I thought, he admitted. I just know there were nights I'd be halfway through a paragraph and think, I've never told anyone this before. Why am I saying it now? And it didn't feel like I was talking to the Daniel I goof around with. It felt like someone who already saw past all the act. That was me, I said quietly. Seeing you, not pretending. The only fake part was whose name was at the top. I know, he said. And that's why I'm here instead of pretending you don't exist. Because if I walk away from whatever that connection was just because it started wrong, I'll probably regret it for a long time. Tears stung my eyes. I'm not asking you for anything, I said. Not a relationship. Not forgiveness on a schedule. I want you to know that I never meant to play with your feelings. I didn't start that conversation thinking, oh good, a chance to manipulate Adrian. I was trying to help. Then I got attached. Then I got selfish. And I hate that. I hate that I hurt you. I hate that I made you doubt yourself. I know you didn't start this with some evil plan, he said. If you did, you're really bad at being evil. You apologize too much. A tiny reluctant smile tugged at his mouth. It did weird things to my heart. So what do you want? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. From me, from this. He thought for a moment, drumming his fingers on his cup. I want to try, he said finally. Not jump into anything, not slap a label on it and pretend the lie didn't happen. But I want to see what it looks like to get to know you as you. Without my best friend's name in the way. I stared at him. You want to try, I repeated. He nodded. I like you, Maya. I liked you when you were words on a screen and I didn't know it. And I like you now, sitting in front of me, owning up to your mess and not making excuses. I'm still mad. I still don't trust you completely, but I'd rather work through that than cut you out just to make my life simpler. A tear slipped down my cheek. I wiped it away quickly. I don't deserve that, I said. Maybe not, he said. But I'm not doing this because you deserve it. I'm doing it because I want to, and because I think the person who told me my dreams mattered, and the person sitting in front of me are the same person. And I'd be an idiot to pretend they're not. He reached across the table and set his hand on mine. Warm, solid, familiar, and a completely new way. So, he said, can we start over? Hi, I'm Adrian. I overshare in group chats, make music in my bedroom, and I'm trying to figure out how not to screw up my entire life. A breathy laugh escaped me. Hi, I said. I'm Maya. I write overly long texts, overthink everything, and am currently in a multi-step program to stop pretending to be my brother. He smiled. really smiled, the kind that reached all the way to his eyes. That's a start, he said. Starting over wasn't magical. It was messy. We started small. Coffee on purpose this time. Walks around campus. Study sessions where we actually studied at least half the time. He asked me questions about my life that he'd never bothered with before. What I wanted to do after graduation. What I liked about communications. What my favorite guilty pleasure show was. I told him things I'd been too shy to say when I was just Daniel's sister, hovering at the edge of the group. He told me more about his music. He played me some of his tracks with one earbud. I saw how his whole face changed when he talked about sound and layers and rhythm. How alive he looked when he forgot to be worried about dealership spreadsheets. Sometimes there were awkward moments. He'd say, "Remember when you told me," and then stop, realizing he wasn't sure whether it had been me or Daniel in his head at the time. We had to untangle his memories, label them correctly. That scar conversation? I'd say, me. That thing about the cat outside your building? He'd ask. Daniel, trust doesn't snap back into place like a rubber band. It regrows slowly, like a plant you thought was dead. There were setbacks. Days he got quiet and distant. Days I spiraled and convinced myself he'd changed his mind. We talked about it. Sometimes badly, sometimes well. Slowly, it got easier. Daniel and Adrian had their own repair process. I wasn't in those conversations, but I saw their edges. The first time Adrian came over again, the way they sat on opposite ends of the couch at first, then gradually sank into their old rhythms. I heard one thing through the apartment wall one night. I should have been the one you texted, Daniel said. Yeah, Adrian said, but you weren't. You were busy being crushed by your life. I'm glad someone was there, even if it was in the weirdest way possible. Their friendship changed shape. Less automatic joking, more real check-ins. Less "we're fine because we're always loud," and more, "Hey, are you actually okay?" The chaos committee revived eventually, Adrian rejoined. The first time my phone lit up with a notification from the group chat, my stomach twisted. Adrian, I'm never letting Daniel live down the fact that his sister texts better than he does. Daniel, I refuse to confirm or deny anything. Cole, called it. Lucas added a crying laughing emoji and changed the group chat name to Chaos Committee plus our moral compass. I laughed out loud in my bed, relief bubbling up in my chest. By the time New Year's Eve rolled around, things weren't perfect, but they were real. Daniel forgave me in pieces, not all at once. We still bumped into the edges of what had happened sometimes, but when he talked about job applications now, he said we'll figure it out and actually meant we, not Maya, handle my emails. Adrian and I weren't some fairy tale couple. We were two people still figuring out how to build something. Honest on the ashes of something built on a lie. We were trying though. That night Adrian texted, "Rooftop? 11:30? I want to see how the city looks when the year changes." So I found myself on the roof of his apartment building, wrapped in a too big hoodie, the December air biting at my cheeks. The city stretched out around us, lights glittering. People shouted countdowns from open windows. Fireworks were already starting early in the distance. This is better than dealership spreadsheets, I said. Everything is better than dealership spreadsheets, he said. Except maybe filling out FAFSA. That's worse. We stood in comfortable silence for a minute, shoulders brushing. I keep thinking about those messages, he said quietly. The ones from before. My stomach clenched. Yeah? Not in a let me torture myself way, he said. More in a trying to understand my own brain way. There were nights I'd put my phone down and think, I feel seen, like someone took my insides and translated them back to me in a language I understood. He glanced over at me. I thought that was my best friend, he said, and that messed with me. But now I know that person was you. The way you talk now, the way you listen, it matches. My brain is weirdly relieved. I'm glad your brain approves, I said, smiling a little. I'm still mad at you sometimes, he admitted. Something will remind me of how it felt at that bench. And I'll get this flash of, wow, that sucked. I get flashes too, I said. Of you walking away? Of Daniel looking at me like he didn't recognize me. It's not something I can ever be proud of. He nodded. But I don't want that to be the only thing that defines us, he said. I don't want our story to be girl lies forever. Boy never talks to her again. Because before you lied, you listened. Before I found out, I healed pieces of myself I didn't even know were jagged. That's real too. I breathed out slowly. I'm sorry, I said, like I hadn't said it 100 times. I'll always be sorry. I know, he said. At some point, you're going to have to forgive yourself too. The countdown started somewhere below us. 10, 9, 8. He stepped in front of me, hands gently resting on my shoulders. Maya, he said, I'm here. Not because you were perfect, but because you're honest now. I'd rather have this flawed, messy, honest thing with you than some fake version with anyone else. 7, 6. Tears stung my eyes, but for the first time in a long time, they weren't just from guilt. There was something else in there. Hope. 5, 4. I like you, I said. The real you, not the version in my head. The one standing here shivering on a rooftop because he doesn't own a real coat. He huffed out a laugh. 3, 2. Good, he said. Because I like the real you better too. 1. Happy New Year. Fireworks exploded across the sky, streaks of color lighting up his face. He leaned in, paused just long enough for me to pull back if I wanted to, then kissed me. Soft and tentative and real. No wrong name at the top of the screen. No borrowed identity. No pretending. Just us. When we finally pulled back, he rested his forehead against mine. New Year's resolution, he said. No more lying about who we are. Deal, I whispered. We stood there for a while, watching fireworks and listening to the distant cheers, and the occasional car alarm. For the first time in months, my chest didn't feel like it was collapsing in on itself. It felt full. My name is Maya. I pretended to be my brother in a group chat to help him survive a brutal semester and ended up in the middle of a mess I created with my own thumbs. I lied. I hurt people I love. I fell for someone who didn't even know he was falling for me back. But telling the truth didn't just destroy everything. It changed everything. Daniel and I learned how to be siblings again without me disappearing into his shadow. Adrian and I learned how to build something honest, even if it started with a lie. The Chaos Committee learned that maybe their emotional support shouldn't be outsourced to one person. And me? I stopped being just Daniel's sister in my own life. I'm not proud of how this started, but I'm proud of where I am now. Even though this story started with a lie, it ended with something I didn't realize I'd been missing the whole time. The courage to be fully, painfully, beautifully honest, especially with myself.